Of introductions?
Yes, please.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I think I got Wendy next on my screen.
Hi, Natasha. Am I just saying hi to Natasha, or is there anyone else new?
I believe I'm the only new one.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Natasha.
Nice to meet you, Wendy.
How long have you been here? How long have you been working for the Muni?
Just under 3 months.
Hopefully it's a welcoming place.
So far it has been, so yeah.
Let's see, Illy.
Hi, I'm Ely. Ely Laptop is what it says. It should say Ely Allen. That's me. Welcome.
Awesome, thank you.
It just appeared off my screen. We got David. You've probably met.
Yeah.
Hi, David.
Hi there.
Yeah.
Patrick, you probably met.
Yep.
And is there anyone else on my screen part of BIMTAC?
Our resident author.
Yes.
Yes.
That's me.
Jason.
Jason Dowswell. Yeah.
Jason? Okay, great.
Yeah,
Nice
Jason. Oh yeah, my tag name is Empress Laboratory. My wife is my Empress, and I give her all my love.
Great.
Yeah, just a great member of the team here, and everyone else does all the hard work. I just get to sit on the calls and pitch my book.
Perfect.
And then Chris isn't here, but I've sent him an email reminder.
Okay, cool. Did you all want me to give maybe like a brief introduction? Just a quick blurb. Sure. Yeah, so as Tyler and Seth mentioned, my name is Natasha. I'm the new Island Community Planner. My background is primarily in kind of evaluating affordable housing or alternative affordable housing provisioning, but I've also worked in transit-oriented housing developments or projects, I should say, along with active transportation pilot programming. Prior to this position, I worked for a couple of years in Toronto at a research institution. And then previous to that, I was with the City of Toronto and the City of Vancouver. So I'm still getting kind of caught up in the transportation planning scene on Bowen. So thank you in advance for any of your patience or for your patience, but I'm happy to be involved and I look forward to collaborating with BIMTAC. So.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
And then Steph, next I've got the approval of the agenda.
Nothing, no late items for the open.
Do we have a second member of the public?
Seconding, yep.
Will that just go into public comments for 3?
Yeah, I think Jeremy can speak in public comments, or he can join Melissa in delegations. She's thumbs up that. So,
okay.
Whichever.
Well, I vote we approve the agenda then. Do I need a seconder?
Really?
I'll second.
Thank you.
And if anyone remembers the minutes from June 29th, 2021, I vote we adopt them, although that's a long time ago.
I'll second that.
Okay. And then I don't think there's, well, public comments and delegations are kind of one and the same, but if we're going to do it in delegations, then I don't think there's any public comments.
Okay.
So then we are at delegations.
So we have Melissa Harrison here and joined by Jeremy Church.
Hi, everybody. I hope that's all right, Jeremy. I suggested that I lump you in with my delegation.
That's good.
So
what I wanted to say was, if I could, Melissa, just that Melissa and I came to this meeting with the same topic, but independently of each other. So I actually reached out to Steph to talk about landing an agenda item, and she sent me the login for the Zoom meeting, and then sent me the agenda, and I went on there and realized that Melissa was talking about something very similar. So I wanted to kind of land it twice, just to emphasize that it wasn't one party coming together; it was 2 people coming that just happened to be talking about the same topic, just for reference. And yeah, so.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk to you about basically about teen commuters, and to ask you about how we can best advocate for them. I don't know exactly, but I think that there's maybe 200 teen commuters a day going to high school. And my napkin math suggests that might be as much as 15% of the commuters each day, of the people using the ferry each day. So they're not an insignificant number of people. And of course, they're probably among our most vulnerable ferry users, right? Because they're young and, you know, not supervised basically while they're on their journey. They set off, most of them, about between 7 and 7:15 a.m. And they get the 7:30 ferry, and ideally they're getting the 3:30 ferry home again. So it's a pretty long day for young people. Some of them are only 13 years old. So that's like 9 hours or something, if it goes smoothly. And so I guess like my objective, and I hope everybody's objective, is to get these guys like safely and efficiently to and from school. And like, and when I say efficiently, I mean like with an objective of reducing the amount of exhaustion they have. And many parents have talked to me about how their children cry because of the commute, especially the young students. It's really it's a big additional burden onto their little lives. So some of the students have a school bus from their house, then they switch at the ferry, and then they get another bus to onto Rockridge. But that's not all of the students, and virtually none of the students will do that 100% of the week, because they have activities before or after school. They have classes where they don't have to be in, and also this year they have X block, so that they finish early on those days, and there's no school bus to collect them from Rockridge. And then also there is, I don't know, maybe 30 or 40 students go to West Van, and they don't get school bus at all. So almost every student will have at least one journey a week where they're not met by a school bus. And those journeys are not going well for various reasons. And I don't know that I don't know that I need to go into that much. But anyway, the problem is that there's, you know, it's fine if I don't have a problem with them getting the public transport. I'm not suggesting that every student should have a school bus for every single journey, but there are mismatches between the ferry schedule and the bus schedule, which means that a lot of the kids are having to wait for an hour unsupervised at the ferry terminal. Or Jeremy will tell you about how Rockridge students can't get to school. If they don't get the school bus, then they have to wait because the bus that goes to school leaves before the ferry arrives. So there's these mismatches, and also problems with the cutoff, where the bus gets there slightly after the cutoff. So the ferry is right there. They could easily make it to the ferry, but they still have to wait for an hour. And so the results of these is that they're at the ferry terminal unsupervised for an hour, some of them several times a week. Well, I would say, I mean, they're not all waiting for an hour several times a week, but probably almost all students are several times a week finding their way, not with the school bus. And of course, it means a longer day, which is more stressful and tiring for them. And one of the things that they do is they leave school early in order to make the bus. And, you know, like 20 minutes early or something, they're missing a third of every last class of every day. You know, it's cumulatively impactful, not to say annoying for the teachers, I'm sure. And I think that the solutions are small changes to the schedules, you know, small changes to the ferry schedules, small changes to the bus schedules, and really it's about matching them for the Bowen commuters and for the teens in particular. And some things like that should be done anyway for commuters, like if the bus they used to do this, like if the bus is late, like if the 257 is late, there's no real reason why it can't call ahead to the terminal, say we're on our way, can you just wait? You know, because it's ridiculous if the bus is just a couple of minutes late and the cutoff comes and goes and they can't get on the ferry when it, you know. And the ferry could wait before activating the cutoff, because, you know, they don't have to cut them off. It's not as if these kids can't get to the ferry fairly quickly and easily. Or they could, or additionally, they could give students passes, because they don't pay for the ferry anyway. So there's no reason for them to get tickets, because they don't have to pay. But most of all, I think that there should be a principle that student needs need to be taken into account when TransLink and BC Ferries are determining their schedules. Again, I'll just say again that, you know, it's, I think maybe 200 students a day, taking 2 journeys a day. I think it's a significant enough number that whenever they change the schedule, they should just take a few moments to figure out how that's going to work for these relevant journeys. So I think that's all I've got to say. I am happy to talk about the specifics of how these don't work for my son, but I think it's I'd like to hear Jeremy's stuff now.
Thanks, Melissa. Hi, folks. My name is Jeremy Church. I live up on Derry Road, up on Kate's Hill, and I'm actually a high school principal in the North Vancouver School District. And I know for me, we've actually arranged our bell schedule around public transportation schedules to make sure that our kids can arrive at the right time and can leave without having to leave early. And so I'm certainly not asking the school system to be as accommodating as I was with my kids at school. But I think Melissa frames it really well, is that there are these very small changes that I think could have an incredibly large benefit to students. My assumption might be that it would have very minimal impact on anybody else. And if I could be as specific as just to name the one that I was most concerned about, was the 262. The 262 is a bus that leaves from Horseshoe Bay to Caulfield Village in the morning, and it leaves at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So if a student, so the kids can catch the 8 o'clock boat, the bus, because they get there, but they don't need to, because the students in Rockridge can catch the school bus that goes up there. And I think that schedule used to work when the ferry schedule was 7:30, 8:30, 9:30, 10:30. But however long it's been since that's changed, if a kid misses the 7:30 boat, they have to catch the 8:35 boat, and they can't make it out to the 262 bus in order to catch it. So they end up waiting in Horseshoe Bay until the 10 o'clock bus and get to school at 10:15, having arrived in Horseshoe Bay at 9 o'clock. And so to Melissa's point around kind of considering Bowen Island teen commuters, that in my mind would be a simple shift to say, what if that schedule just shifted? The 8 o'clock bus doesn't help anybody. What if that schedule shifted to 8:10, 9:10, 10:10? Then hypothetically, anybody who's late or who has a spare first thing in the morning, or who was sick the night before and had to sleep in, or whatever else, could actually make their way to school and still get there at a reasonable time without having to wait in Horseshoe Bay. And I think Melissa certainly has an example of on the other side of things. But I know that for my kids who are commuting to Rockridge, I have 2 that are going to Rockridge, that becomes this fear factor in the morning, where if they don't catch that 7:30 boat, they're kind of hooped. And so you see these kids mad dashing for it. And I think we as the adults can do a better job, maybe insulating them from some of those minor stressors by navigating what is a very bureaucratic system. And my hope for today was to land this with the group of people that I assume will be the voices for those that live on the island to help navigate those bureaucratic waters, as opposed to our kids asking the bus driver, can you just leave later, or anything else. I think that would be helpful. But I certainly do know, I can certainly attest to Melissa's feeling of kids, the stress that they carry, like the kids that are catching a bus from West Van or Sentinel. My daughter has an academy that she goes to, but there's this feeling of white knuckle that they experience by not catching that 3:30 boat, and by being on there, checking their watches, knowing that if they don't get there by 3:20, that's going to get closed down, even if they could completely make the boat at the 3:30 boat. And then the impact being that if they get back to Bowen, they can't get a school bus back up anywhere on the island. So the impact of missing the 3:30 is that you now lose access to your transportation on Bowen through the school system. And so, anyways, just feeling like we as the adults can do a better job trying to kind of wrap around them and make sure that we can at least smooth some of those waters for them, that I think would go a really long ways and help them feel like their community is tending to those social and emotional needs in ways that I think adults can do a better job of navigating. So those are my 2 cents. So thanks for listening. I do agree with Melissa on another topic, like finding ways that commuters don't have to sit there and make that 10-minute cutoff. I think about the C bus, which goes every 15 minutes, has a pass that they can just tap on the way onto the boat. It deducts their fee or whatever else. I think that there's potentially some brainstormer solutions that commuters could tap into that wouldn't require them to make that cutoff either. So I'll stop there. And I noticed that David had a hand. Maybe there's a question or two.
Sure. Well, thanks, Melissa, and thanks, Jeremy. It gets me really upset. This is absolutely outrageous. I'm no longer commuting, but I used to. And, that 10-minute rule and the 2:57, you're going to be a minute late and everybody's looking at their watch. And, but the other, the knock-on effects, there's no bus then to get home afterwards. It's just outrageous. So we need a bit more detail, like, for instance, if those were 8, 10, 9, 10, and so on. Melissa, you talked about the 2:57, so that must be people from the West Van High rather than Rockridge. But there is a Rockridge bus that goes down as well. Is that correct, to catch all those ferries? But I don't want to get into the details right now, but we need to get the details from you. One of the things we used to do is we pull together a meeting with TransLink and BC Ferries and figure out how we can make things work better. That kind of fell away when the 2:57 moved to every 20 minutes because it became less of a stressor. There were just more buses, but we need to bring that up again. And it's a tricky thing to do, to get them all together, but that's what we have to do, and to get the Rockridge School involved as well. So that, just one simple question, that bus going up the 262 going up to Caulfield at 8, 9, 10, is there anyone on that bus other than students?
So it leaves, I was wondering this, it leaves Lions Bay at 7:48, leaves Horseshoe Bay at 8. So I can see that there might be a few commuters from Lions Bay, but my assumption would be that not many of them are going to Caulfield Village for work, that it would most likely be students or maybe other folks that live in Horseshoe Bay going to Caulfield for groceries. But for my perspective, would be curious around, like, is there any impact on them moving at 10 minutes later? And then with the 250, with the frequency of the 257, should somebody catch a 10-minute later bus from Lions Bay, the frequency of the 250 or 257 would allow them to still catch a number of buses as opposed to the once an hour 262.
Yeah, there are often complexities that we don't see just looking at it from our point of view.
No, of course.
But it's bringing all the people together and saying, come on, let's solve this. We've got a couple of hundred students that are commuting regularly, and there are some real stressors, and it's just, we should be able to solve it. So that's just something we'll have to do, and we'll figure out how we can pull that together.
Well, and I feel, and I really appreciate, like, Melissa, you had some special words about unattended time, like where our kids are an hour out of just hanging around to get that bus. And that's the bigger concern for me. And I think this transport committee is talking about time schedules. We understand that TransLink has to deliver their product, which is that their buses show up on time when they're supposed to show up. So the 257 can't slow up because they need to be in Park Royal at a certain time. So that's why they leave. We respect and understand that. We can have those dialogues, but the idea that, these kids miss something and they're gone for an hour doing what, we don't know. And our experience on Bowen Island as young kids raised with the big school is a fantastic one, but this whole migration to high school and the expectation of how our kids experience high school concerns me. My kids are both young, 9 and 5. But high school is right around the corner, and these are issues that are apparent, and we're under the thumb of being part of the West Vancouver district. Like we will not build a high school until West Vancouver satisfies the fact that the West Vancouver high schools are completely filled up. But that's not happening. That's not the trend. The trend is that the population buying and living in West Vancouver is less children centric. So, you know, the West Van schools need, high schools need to fill their seats, and it means that we're going to continue to have to commute our kids across the water. And that's absolutely white knuckle stress. That was so well said. It stresses me out. I can't do it anymore. I can't commute every day anymore. I can't. It's too much. And we're pushing this on 13, 14, 15, 16-year-olds to do it every day. There's an impact to that. That needs to be an awareness. That is a transport issue. Thank you for raising this comment.
I could just chime in there. I think your point is well taken. And I think especially if you take the transportation out of it, I know on another topic, I think some advocacy for our Bowen youth, potentially by municipality with the school, would be really helpful, because it is often forgotten about the Bowen kids. They'll make a change to the bell schedule and not adjust the buses, or they on a snow day will say things like, well, you know, parents come pick up your kids have to make their own way home. And the Bowen parents are often kind of, what the heck are we going to do? So I think on another topic, advocacy for the 200 kids that are going in, whatever school they go to, I think, to remind the West Van School District that the Bowen Island needs are such. But yeah, thanks. Just wanted to just add that bit.
So just a point here, Jeremy, you put in the chat that we've tried with Rockridge and not a lot of uptake. Does that mean you tried to get them to think about adjusting the schedule or doing something like that? Is that what you meant with that?
We've tried to address the transportation needs this year, specifically with the change in the school schedule. I've tried to address this, but it's kind of like, I don't think Rockridge sees it their priority to navigate with TransLink a bus schedule for a small number of kids. And so it ends up kind of living in the no person's land around, well, whose job is it to advocate for that? I can send an email to TransLink right now and say, I've got an idea about the transition for the 262 bus, but I'm guaranteed it's not going to go anywhere, as of my other great ideas with TransLink. But so just trying to think, like, I feel like there's a little bit of like, whose job is it to figure this piece out? And my sense is from Rockridge that they don't see it as their piece.
No, they don't see it as their piece. TransLink doesn't see it as their piece. BC Ferries doesn't see it as their piece. And BC Ferries is absolutely Stalinist about the 10-minute rule, which is outrageous. We all know that those kids can make it there in 3 minutes. But and it should be like the C bus, where you just pull right up and you make it or you don't, instead of some artificial rule that drives everybody crazy. I think what we need to do is, Natasha, sort of Emma pulled together these meetings with our former planner. And so Natasha, I'll give you a call tomorrow and we'll chat about how we might be able to start that up again, because we need to do something to solve
Yep,
this.
that sounds like a good plan.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how to do this, but it means bringing everybody together. And Melissa and Jeremy, it would really be good if you sent us an email with all the details. So so we're not just saying, we think some of the buses, tell us which ones, your suggestions for Rockridge, for West Van High, if that's part of it, I don't know, and to TransLink. BC Ferries are not going to move their schedules.
No, nor are we. Yeah.
I was just going to say, it might also be good to invite the school district, because this doesn't impact me because Jonah goes to West Van, but for Rockridge, I understand they have now X-blocked twice a week. And so most of the students finish early, but they don't provide a school bus. So all those kids have to get from Rockridge, like Caulfield, to Horseshoe Bay, all of them emptying out at once on a bus that doesn't, on a public bus that doesn't have enough seats for that number of students. So half of them get stranded. So, and that seems to me to be the school district's responsibility. They should be providing a school bus at that time if all the students are finishing at that time. So it might be good to also talk to the school district. And I know they have a transport department because I've spoken to them.
Are there any Bowen parents who liaise with these schools that could advocate directly to Rockridge and West Van High?
I don't think there is much parent organized. There's not much organization. Would you say, Jeremy?
I think parents have raised this as a concern a number of
As
times this year,
individuals.
both with the X block, and I've taken it to the school district administration, and there tends to be sort of a mantra, which is our response is we're not providing it. So I think that's where we got a bit stonewalled this year, and it was frustrating. And at some point you cut your losses and say, I can't, so you teach your kids to navigate it, but certainly within the context of Rockridge, I think the Bowen Island kids end up feeling certainly like an afterthought more often than not. And that's feedback I've offered, but I don't know that there's a Bowen pack group. Like there's the Rockridge Facebook group, but I don't know that there's any kind of organization within it. And I don't know if I at least got something to offer there as well, but.
It
Yeah.
might be valuable in some way to get involved in PAC meetings or something. I don't know where, where there's already an infrastructure for parents to get involved in school life.
Yeah, I had floated with the principal around having kind of a Bowen specific pack or a Bowen specific, like making sure that you're seeking some consult with some Bowen parents when you're making decisions regarding transportation or school schedule, because it is an added layer. I think just to share with Rockridge, it's not just Bowen, it's Lions Bay and Horseshoe Bay kids are all in the same transportation lump because they all meet the transportation requirements from Rockridge. I think what Melissa was referring to is that Tuesdays and Thursdays school ends at 12:30 with formal classes. They call it X block in the afternoon where kids are encouraged to stay. But if you live in West Van, you can go home, but they don't run the buses until 3 o'clock that day. So the Bowen kids are at school for 2.5 hours with no scheduled classes and nothing to do, which is where the feast or famine on that 262 that leaves. You got 25, you got 75 kids getting on a bus for 25 kids. It's a bit Lord of the Flies-ish is how it's been painted for me. And my kids don't even bother going because it's not worth the effort.
Yeah, my son has some pretty hilarious, quote unquote, stories of trying to get on that bus. And basically it is like people, kids are pulling other kids by backpacks and it's crazy. It's total bedlam, right? So, yeah, no, it's, and I mean, it's my personal frustration. It's like, if they want the kids to stay, which they obviously do, then have classes the whole time. Don't make it this weird thing where they don't need to be there and then not provide a way for them to get home. It's very frustrating. So
I think the lack of public transportation for Rockridge students is just what it amplifies it. That if kids felt like there was a pathway for them to leave or a pathway for them to get there without needing to tap into that school bus, but the school bus ends up feeling like I'll be dramatic, but a bit of a hostage scenario where they don't really have a choice. If I don't catch that 7:30 bus, the 7:30 boat, I'm kind of hooped. And if I want to go anywhere else in the afternoon, I'm hooped. But again, that's bigger fish to fry than this committee may go after. So, but I think to your point, David, we've tried to address it, but people have finite energy and there's only so much you can do. So.
Okay, so we'll, as I said, we'll have a chat tomorrow and see with Natasha, we'll see if we can pull together a meeting. But unfortunately, this won't be a quick fix. You can imagine how long it would take to get a meeting of everybody together. And if the two of you were available for a meeting, probably not during the day.
I can make it work. Yeah. But I mean, again, if I'm invited to have a conversation that matters about my kids, I'll show up anytime. So.
Melissa, maybe?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Thanks. We'll see what we can do.
So the previous meetings, I think, used to happen in the summer and were kind of in preparation for September start, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And there were no, that was a municipality, BC Ferry's TransLink kind of closed meeting where we just went through the schedules and the connections and specifically looked at the kids' connections. And I went to at least one or two of those. And yeah, that did die with the promised 20-minute service. I think it was TransLink refused to have the meeting the following year, but it's definitely worth a try to get that going again. I had a couple of other notes. The call ahead time on the 257, that used to happen when the 257 was still a TransLink bus. And when it switched to a West Van bus, there was some breakdown of that system. However, the FAC has brought this up to BC Ferries. And I believe, I'm just going off memory, that the last meeting it was mentioned and that BC Ferries said that this this could still happen. There was nothing to stop the call ahead of the bus to try and smooth out 257 mismatches. So we could follow up on that. As David mentioned, the C-bus boarding pass style loading has been brought up every meeting I've been to with the FAC, and they have their reasons, but they're currently not budging. But I'll keep trying that one. But yeah, I think the matching schedules on the shuttle are probably one that the easiest sell of all the problems. And I'd just like to say thanks for your comments. I mean, I grew up and lived this trouble on Bowen, so I sympathize with your kids' boredom and frustration. And my rugby coach in Rockridge was very upset when I quit after I had had enough of this missing buses. So I sympathize.
Thanks for listening, folks. I really appreciate your time tonight. Good luck with the rest of your meeting.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming, really.
So much for coming.
Thanks to both of you.
Yeah, I guess I think
Yeah, thanks so much, you too.
my parting comment would be that just that to reiterate that there's nobody at the moment advocating for these teens, and we need to build in some sort of requirement for TransLink and BC Ferries, and also the school district to be taking into account the Bowen students' needs. Somehow, as adults, we need to build that into how they make these decisions. They can't just say, oh, well, the Bowen students will just have to figure it out for themselves, because it's not good enough. So if you guys can help with that, I'd be super grateful.
We'll certainly do our best. And I haven't been to I don't think I was at any of those meetings, so I'm glad that you were, Tyler. I don't know if anyone else was at any of the earlier meetings that we had.
I think it was me and Emma, maybe one other person, and then Darren, the BC Ferries terminal manager, and two guys from TransLink, and it was held at the Horseshoe Bay BC Ferries facility.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry, Tyler, when was the last meeting you had with
I'll
everyone?
dig it up. It was probably a couple of years ago.
It was a couple of years ago. Okay.
Because it was shut down for the 257 change, and then COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tyler, if you've got any files or anything like that you could send to Natasha, that would probably, I don't know.
That'd be really helpful.
Yeah, I'll dig up who was there when it happened, all that stuff. I'm sure there's an email somewhere.
Yeah, I may have been there. That was a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see if I have notes too.
I think you may have been there, yeah.
David, you asked for details of the particular routes and so on. Who should we send that to staff? Should send that to you, Steph? Okay, so I'll coordinate with Jeremy to
Or I can send you Natasha and
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was either CCS or
I will,
Yeah.
I'll send you their information.
Okay, that'd be great. Thanks.
In case it fall through a crack.
Okay, thanks.
Jeremy, do you want to put your email in the chat? Or I have it, you said, that's right. Sorry.
Can I go?
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay, next we've got action items. What
I think we can fly through those. They are old
Mhm.
and possibly not relevant anymore.
Okay, we had investigate where electrical outlets exist on Bowen that can be used for e-bike charging. I don't remember if I did that or not. That was a while ago. Consider potential locations for new electrical outlets that could be used for e-bike charging. I don't know if anybody...
Do you want to leave it on? Should people still keep an eye open, or have we moved on?
The last last correspondence I had was a while back. And I'd asked them, I'd given them some scenarios of a circuit that we would need to, I think, install three duplex receptacles. And, you know, we just put up a little shelf for people to put their batteries. And I haven't heard back and I haven't followed up. So that's where it sits. So I'll follow up with Natasha about
Is that BC
getting that
Heritage?
rolling again.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, that was sort of items 3 and 4. I believe number 5 was done for the follow-up with RCMP regarding vehicles passing the school bus.
Yeah, and he put a that was the article in the paper, and I didn't follow up as far as if there's any repeat offenders and, you know, to tar and feather. But I think just that article was in the paper and everything was what we were going for originally.
Yeah. They've got item 7 for the FAC to talk to BC Ferries about cars being located so far away from each other on the ferry deck. I think that the FAC might have passed this on. I can't be sure, but it does ring a bell. And Darren always says that they will remind staff, but I think they do have limitations as to how much instruction they want to give cars. Because you're still responsible for your own collisions. They don't take, if they direct you to keep going forward and you smash into the car in front of you, I believe they still treat it as if you're on the road and that's your fault. Number 8, David to work with staff and urban systems to come up with a solution to Seven Hills safety concerns.
Yeah, well, that, I don't know if this was before we had that report, but you remember Urban Systems, I think it was Urban Systems, yeah, proposed we just move the line over a little bit, the center lines, and Patrick didn't agree with that, felt that that was a safety issue, and so that needs to be dealt with, but we need to come up with a solution, but Patrick's got way too much to do right now, I would say, to, I don't know, Patrick, you could.
Well, I mean, we can, and we will paint a fog line on the east side of the road, you know, to at the very least create a bit of a better barrier between the travel lane on the east side and the limited gravel shoulder. What really needs to happen there is a you know, pedestrian trail, a proper trail constructed, which is going to involve you know, some design, some property acquisition. We also have to look at the parking situation along at the bottom of the hill and elsewhere where parked cars are causing people to walk out onto the road. So, I mean, I'll talk to Tash about, you know, what we can realistically advance next year, what we're able to budget for. And we may be able to get some design work going. I mean, the advantage of that is there is a lot of grant opportunities for this type of thing. And if you haven't got, you know, your design, that the project that you're actually looking for funding for figured out, your options are pretty limited. And most municipalities applying for, you know, the TransLink competitive grants and others, you know, they have their designs advanced pretty far along, you know, often ready to construct. So we're, in order to compete with that, we have to, and in order to advance the project and create something that's safe. I mean, ideally, you know, it'd be a multi-use path, you know, like that scenario isn't great for cyclists, but that's just a whole other level of cost and you know, probably time to get something in place.
So Patrick, to get just to get some work done on a design so that we can then apply for some grants. I mean, the design for a real multi-use path like we're doing on the other one, we know that would huge issues and really expensive. But is there something sort of that would be you know, a little less expensive and simpler than that you could imagine sending out to a consultant to do a design?
Yeah, I was thinking we could do something quite a bit simpler. I mean, one of the biggest questions to identify or resolve is, you know, what is the extent of property acquisition that would be required? And a lot of it is from that one larger property that, you know, in my conversations with Daniel, he sort of indicated there was an expectation a while back that that was going to come forward for subdivision. And then as part of that, you would get your path constructed, or at the very least get your road dedication that you need. But who knows what's happening or when that would ever occur. I think we have to identify what it is we need and then approach these property owners. You know, and the very same sort of thing we have to do for the next phase of the multi-use path.
So if we wanted to try to get this on our agenda for next year, I mean, do you think, I mean, you know, we'd have to pay for someone to do the work on developing a plan. Can you get grants for plan development or half of plan development?
Yeah, well, I mean, we got a network planning grant, the infrastructure, the active transportation fund. Yeah. Network planning grant for 50% of the funding for the design for the next phase of the multi-use path. So there's a lot of that stuff out there, like especially for this type of project. And you know, I'm glad that Tasha's here now, because part of the challenge is just pursuing these opportunities and having having an eye on the ball.
Yeah, so maybe Tyler, we should have some sort of a motion about requesting that Patrick that staff rather, I should say, that staff work on the feasibility of doing some planning work for a more safer cycling and walking environment on Seven Hills, something like that. Would that be useful, Patrick, if we had something like that?
Yeah, or even more specific to, you know, advance the planning design for a safe, you know, pedestrian or potentially cycling route up Seven Hills. I think, yeah, the multi-use path is going to be trickier, but yeah, I think something specific like that would be helpful. Because that would have to be included in the 2022 budget. There would be some funds for planning and design work relating to that.
Well, you guys are giving me deja vu a little bit, and looking at the minutes from the last meeting, I think we talked about redirecting part of a $25,000 budget towards planning and design of a proper path. Is that? Yeah, no, it's you're not wrong. It's the same. You know, we're not really further ahead. We still have to do that. Divert some or budget some money and hire somebody to help us produce a plan and design that we can figure out our property acquisitions and apply for grants. And we're trying to get we are getting a better 5-year capital plan put together. And so that would be, then you would have some idea of what to put in 2023 as a capital requirement for building that new path. I guess, do we need a motion, David, or have we already captured this with an action by David Hocking?
I was wondering about that. Good memory there, Tyler. I'd forgotten about that part. Maybe Steph can give us some advice about what we should do.
Well, I usually would defer to Patrick and Natasha on their workload. If we send something like this to council and it comes back, it just brings it to the top of the list. So if you want this at the top of the list, Patrick, then I don't see why sending it to council again. But if you can't take it, then I wouldn't.
we will, we'll do our best to advance this. I think it is important. And we will paint a fog line on the road in the spring. And that is the budget that I've put together, which still has to go through the process, has planning and design funds in there for this project. So, I guess that has to be evaluated along with other priorities. I don't know whether it really matters too much if we have another recommendation from this committee.
So maybe just keep it on the
Actions.
ongoing actions, just to check in on the action sheet for now, just to keep reminding our support.
That sounds good to me. It doesn't sound like you guys need us rearranging your schedule.
No, it's we know it's important.
Thanks, Patrick.
Illy and I were supposed to reach out to Tourism Bowen, and I don't think I did.
I know I didn't.
So I still think we should do that for next this upcoming summer. But maybe I'll give this one another shot. We can leave it on.
Okay. Sure.
And then my hope, I think, was to make an annual work plan for BIMTAC, but we seem to be having enough trouble just getting meetings scheduled. So I'm feeling a little bit less optimistic about increasing BIMTAC's workload on item 11 there.
And I think that was when we didn't have a transportation planner, which we do now.
Yeah.
And these types of issues such as student transportation and meetings with TransLink and
Keep us busy.
charging stations.
Mhm.
Okay.
So I'll take that one off then.
Then I'll move us along to elections. We need to nominate and elect a chair and a vice chair.
Hold on, did we do? Sorry.
Didn't we do this on the last? Oh, never mind.
We
I would
haven't
like
had-
to elect Tyler Davenport as chair.
Seconder?
We haven't had a actual meeting since you requested to step back. So I've been.
I guess that's true. Oh, we didn't have quorum or something last time, did we? That's what it was.
We need to do this at the beginning of every year anyways, so.
So I would like to
Nominate.
nominate, Tyler Davenport as chair.
Seconder?
Second.
Good, got a second
Yeah.
there.
I'll run it, Tyler. All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Tyler's abstaining is voting the positive.
We didn't ask Tyler if he's willing to accept it.
We skipped that part.
Doesn't matter.
Sorry, Tyler.
Yeah, that's okay.
Now, Tyler, now you get to nominate the next person. That's payback time.
Would anyone like to nominate themselves for vice chair? Illy's done this.
I'd love to. I'm too busy.
Ely, are
Now
you
it
willing?
makes,
Wendy Alexander, can I nominate you? Or
I was thinking of dropping off the committee.
No.
Wendy, you got to read my book.
Okay.
Come on.
Well, Illy, do you just want to trade? Do you want to be the vice chair now?
Who, me? Sure. I'll be the vice. If you want to nominate me, I'll do
I
it.
nominate Illy then.
Okay.
Here, here.
I
Aye.
accept.
seconder,
Okay.
all in favor?
Good.
Okay, moving on. Thank you guys so much.
Does this agenda that I'm looking at have a time when we need to close this, or is that just the MUP path?
You're
this-
looking at, I don't, there should not be MUP on this agenda. The new agenda came out, and the
Oh,
next
okay.
on the agenda would be the e-vehicle charging stations.
Mhm.
Okay, just checking in.
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I have e-vehicle charging stations as the new business number 7.
Natasha.
Yeah, great. So if you haven't heard, I just wanted to confirm that 2 EV charging stations have been installed at the library. And I guess I should preface, would it be beneficial, because I believe this started back in like 2018. Like, do folks kind of need a reminder of things, or are we good?
Reminder, yeah. Reminder.
Everyone needs a reminder.
Yeah, okay.
Each group.
Okay. So from what I could dig up with Emma's correspondence and primarily with BC Hydro, is that the municipality was able to purchase 2 level 2 charging stations from Flow, which is a company that has a provincial agreement arrangement with BC Hydro. And so we were able to purchase it through BC Hydro because of rehabilitation funding. So it wasn't through any grants of sort. The library was specifically chosen, I believe, because of public land tenure, proximity to electrical servicing, and then along with kind of convenience and accessibility from the main route. And also it's very visible from ferry traffic. What else did I find? I guess the most important thing really now is because they have been installed, we need to figure out kind of a user fee payment model. So I think it's beneficial for us to talk about whether or not we're interested in charging people, so either an hourly rate or a minute rate. And if so, what rate would we like to charge? I have done a little bit of research in terms of looking at other municipalities. So I'm happy to share what I've found there. I will add, in terms of maintenance fees with Flow, it is $150 after the first year. So the first year is free. The charging stations are operational if offline. So if we actually don't connect to the Flow network, like we choose not to have them maintain anything, we can still use them. However, we just can't, we wouldn't be able to have like an easy payment option, nor would we be able to access any of the data associated with the usage. So
I'm going to ask you, but who owns the charging stations?
So technically BIM, so the municipality does, but the company that we bought them off of is called Flow.
So the idea is that BIM owns them, and if someone plugs in today, they charge for free.
Well, and technically, yes.
And Flow is this idea like, hey, we'll charge you an annual fee, and we'll be able to charge back to the individual for the cost of charging their vehicle.
Yes.
Gotcha.
But technically, if we were to go without Flow, it would be like we would have to come up with a payment like plan and an app. It would be quite difficult.
Why wouldn't you use Flow?
Pardon?
Why wouldn't you use Flow to make to as they're the one, like I have a Flow card.
Yeah, no, my recommendation would be to use Flow, but some people prefer not to pay. And so if we're offering it for free, technically, then you wouldn't need Flow to be a provider, right?
You can't use it for free if you don't have a Flow card, and you have to load your Flow card. So
you can if you have them offline. So Flow, technically, you don't have to be connected to the Flow network to use the charging station.
But the income from Flow comes back to BIM.
It would, yeah.
So my longer dialogue is we need 10 stations, not 2. And where are the other 8 going?
That's a good one. So we would have to find the funding for that first. But I think also, I mean, given the fact that this is the first 2, having access to Flow and having access to the data would then help us, scale if need be, right?
So my opinion is that this is going to be a parking, like somehow tied into parking usage. And I think that you can have a strange dynamic if you ever make them free, because parking is more rare in the cove during busy times than electric charging is expensive. So I think that anybody with an electric car, if it's too easy, will just convenience charge anytime they're in the cove in order to get that parking spot if the restrictions allow it. So my vote would be to charge at least more than the residential hydro rate, so that people are discouraged from convenience charging when they could just plug in at home. And I would also vote to not make them free high priority parking for electric vehicles in the cove, just to reduce public backlash from the F-350s.
Yeah, no, thank you for that comment. I will add, the municipalities that initially started off with like no charge, so at 0 rate, they have now switched over to charging around $1 to $2 an hour, because they were having issues with the parking. And so people were leaving their cars for an extended period of time, and it was decreasing the potential for turnover. So that's also something to take into consideration. But I will add also, what I have found is, so the city of Vancouver, there are $2, city of North Van, $2. Overall, in like smaller municipalities in like more rural areas, they range from 50 cents to $1. So that's just some food for thought. But
How about $1.50? Somewhere in between.
I'd probably just vote for 50 cents. I mean, it's 10 cents a kilowatt hour. And you're going to do, like, my car only pulls in 1.4 kilowatt hours or kilowatts, so kilowatt hours per hour. So for me to charge at home, that's 15 cents an hour. And I can't do too much better at a level 2, maybe twice. So we're talking about a value to a user with a slow charging car of 30 cents an hour tops. So 50 cents would put it above that. If your car can charge a little bit faster, maybe you get closer to the 50 cents payback point. But I think that just limiting the parking to only being while charging.
Do you think 50 cents though would, I mean, wouldn't that would be pretty good deal if you just wanted parking? Do you think that would dissuade people from using it just for parking? If that's
I'm thinking there's a balance between, not everybody who wants to drive an electric car is a wealthy homeowner, and they might not have access to a plug at home. So if this is the only public charger on the island and someone lives in, I don't know, a new, more denser building where they can't plug in outside their front door, having an affordable charging option with them lowers the barrier to electric car ownership. Parking everywhere else is free, so it's not like you have to exceed an alternative cost. So I'd probably vote for making the parking spots 15 minutes and less charging, and charge between 50 cents and $1 to try and prevent anybody from being too annoyed with the change.
So how do we do the charging? So this is what I'm not quite understanding. So the flow system, so we would have to be in the flow system in order to do the charging. And how would people pay? So flow, I guess Wendy already knows how this works.
You can either download an app on your phone, or you can actually have cards. So there's one option, is because it's at the library, and we would have to consult with library staff, is to potentially have a card at the library for individuals who don't have, for example, access to an app. But I think in this day and age, most people would have access, but can't always assume.
yeah,
I
especially.
just have an RFID card that sits in the center console, one for Flow and one for, what's the other company that starts with a C?
Charge
I don't
point.
know, Charge Point.
Yeah.
There's an orange card and a blue card, and they both sit in the center console.
So the flow card, if we were charging as a municipality, the flow card would just be to get into the system. And then there would be a secondary way to pay.
Sorry, say that again.
Well, the flow chart, like, why would you need the flow card if we were charging as a municipality?
If you had the app already, you wouldn't.
Oh, I
You
see.
wouldn't. Yeah. No, no, no.
So I still don't understand.
So Wendy, I think the fees, if the default is we would use the Flow system. So the
Yeah.
user only has a Flow card and they pay the charges through the Flow card, and Flow pays the municipality.
Then the municipality would pay flow every year. What the charge was? Is that the idea?
$150.
It was like $150.
Yeah.
Okay.
For
they would
maintenance
do-
to access the network.
Okay. Yes, I understand.
Okay, and I think Tyler's point about the parking is really important. I mean, there's really two things going on here. One is this is a prime parking spot, and we don't want to get people upset about losing that. So, you know, we want to encourage its use for actual charging. So I think I don't think we need to, it's like trying to wordsmith a document here. We don't need to come up with all the details right here. I think we need to turn it back to you, Natasha, to say, okay, if you could come up with a system that sort of meets the needs that we were all saying here, with a medium-sized charge, but also some sort of a sign that says, if you're not plugging in, you can only be here for 15 minutes, or some version of that.
Or maybe it's just for electric charging from certain time during the day, and then like after dinner, it's for everybody, because a lot of people are going to go down there for dinner, you know. So
Yeah,
I would
that's a
say,
good idea.
you know, like after 6 o'clock or something, anybody can park here.
But I think that actually makes it you're more likely, if it's Saturday in the summer and I go into the Cove, if I have to pay 50 cents to go park there for an hour, that's what I'm going, like, then it's actually worth it. I think the 15 minutes for anybody and less charging, and then let the actual charging vehicle during the day stay longer. It's my opinion that that's a key part of it to not cause trouble.
But Tyler, I'm also, well, no, to Wendy's point, actually. So Tyler, you mentioned, let's say we've got some people living in the new, one of their new apartment type buildings, and they have no way to easily charge their car. So might they want to actually park it there overnight and charge?
Yeah, I think that maybe it's 15 minutes during the day and less charging, and that doesn't apply at night in case they fill up and it's no longer charging.
But they, like with a stage 2, they charge their car in a couple hours.
No, it's over.
A big car could be overnight easily.
Oh, I see.
Well,
So-
maybe not. A little
so-
less. Yeah.
So Wendy, I was getting to your point, is that maybe some people will actually need it for charging at night.
So, but
Yeah,
why
and I-
later?
Yeah.
It's just, I can see a sign that's got a whole lot of writing on it, a lot of
agree. Tricky.
information.
Yeah.
And I think it's got to be really pared down and be simple and easy to understand. Everybody gets it. If it's confusing, it's going to, there's going to be a cartoon in the undercurrent about it.
Yeah, there will be anyway. Yeah.
Seriously.
Okay, Natasha, we've given you a fairly difficult job.
No, that's okay. I mean, from like, in terms of making it as easy as possible, it seems like, we need to decide on an hourly rate, like whether or not that's a flat rate or something gradual or graduated. And then whether or not we want to implement some kind of limit to the parking within the library square, whether or not that's like through the 9 to 5 or if it's overnight. So I think if we're just, yeah, go ahead, Tyler.
I think that, so the charge rate, I don't have too strong of opinion on, whether that's 50 cents. I just think there should be a value on charging. It shouldn't
Yeah.
be free. And I think the reason I'm in favor for having a time limit for those particular spots is that you don't want to say electric vehicles only on Bowen right now because of the pushback for losing prime spots. Having a 15-minute or short time would allow somebody with a non-EV to use the spots quickly, but then guarantee turnover. So if we do have a tourist who desperately needs that charge before they can go home, maybe they're inconvenienced by 15, 30 minutes till they can get access to a spot, but it's not to the detriment of their day. Like they can put up with a little bit of inconvenience to get access when they truly need it. So it's kind of a balance between being inconvenient enough that people won't abuse it who don't need it, but convenient enough that someone who needs it can deal with it.
Yeah, agreed. Good.
Okay, great.
Are we seeing that Natasha's going to put together, formulate an idea out of these comments and then come back to the committee with something in
Or just run with it.
writing or?
Would you, well, the one thing, sorry, Steph, to interrupt you there. In order for us to get Flow's permission to be on the network, we need to provide them with some kind of payment option. So whether or not that be 50 cents an hour or $1 an hour. So it's something that I don't know if we want to agree on, and then I can potentially write up or draft up a staff report and bring it to council and just let them see what the options are in terms of our rates and then what BIMTAC recommends, and then go from there.
That's good.
Does that sound good? Okay.
I mean, I think develop a proposal, bring it back here, and then take it to council.
Sure. Okay.
Are we going to meet more frequently than once a year?
Oh, good point.
I know, I was like, I'll email it to everyone.
I'm already looking at the calendar. There was a pandemic. Nobody was moving.
I mean, I can have this drafted up by the end of the week. Like it's not, I have enough information, I think, in terms of writing up a staff report.
I'd be fine to vote that we recommend that you charge something and have a time limit and just let you do what you want to do.
Okay.
Does anybody want to second that?
I'm going to disagree, Tyler, because someone on council will ask, well, has BIMTAC agreed with this? And we need to say yes. So I think basically exactly what Tyler just said, but then we could do it with an email poll, just so we can then say to council that, yeah, BIMTAC provided advice. Natasha came up with a plan. We agreed to it. And therefore the council will be more willing to then say, yeah, okay, that sounds good to me.
Okay.
Okay. So in terms of just for recommendation with fee, are we like happy with 50 cents to $1 or?
I think you know far more about
great.
what the opinion is in the municipality than it matters what I think about 50
Okay,
cents.
so I'll draft something up and then everyone can chime in.
Yeah.
So look out for an email.
Okay, thanks so much.
All right, thanks everyone.
Okay, number 8, Ferry Advisory Committee update. There was a meeting just before Christmas. There were all of the talking points of usual, the bus not connecting, the 10-minute cutoff, schedules. Nothing got any better. And then they advised us about the terminal updates that are knocking out berth 1 right now. And then they also advised us about a bunch of changes to their FAC committee structure, none of which I remember being super impactful. There is a refit for the fall. That is the, what is it? Queen of Cumberland. It's the sister vessel to the current Queen of Capilano, except instead of having the 2 port and starboard gallery decks for an additional 15 cars, it's got a hydraulically operated second deck on one side. So the capacity is actually higher than the Queen of Capilano, but they need to make the judgment call ahead of time as to whether they use that deck. because it has to be lowered, cars load on it, and then they lift it. So it's a bit of a different system. They figured that they'll be operating this in the fall when they're often below capacity, except for the usual busy routes, and they'll have no problem making that judgment call. I don't think we're going to see any accommodations for the refit, though. They figure they're giving us a bigger ferry, and we don't have any reason to request parking or anything like that. And that's what I remember from that meeting.
Tyler,
Do we know the,
sorry.
I just have some questions from Bonnie. Sorry. What is the exact timing of the refit? Do you know?
I just have fall in my head.
Okay,
I probably have it though. I can follow up.
thank you. Sorry, Councillor.
The question I had was, I'm trying to remember a meeting where, you know, what you were saying, Tyler, about, oh, they'll decide whether to use a ramp or not. I mean, would if they decide to use the ramp, is it so slow that it would really not work with our schedule? Is that kind of what they're getting at?
No, this was something I raised with them, just knowing that they would have some extra time built in to need to deal with this, and they figured that it's not a problem. So
Okay,
the
good.
topic just kind of died there. I raised it and they said it was fine.
Okay, good. Thanks. That's it.
And Bonnie had some questions about statistics. Can we get those?
Oh, yes, I think I have fairly recent ones. I'll look for those as well.
Thank you.
Anything else? Or are we on to update from Councillor Hocking?
Sure. I don't think, you know, the Environment and Climate Action Committee, we've got a meeting tomorrow, a subcommittee of that. It's got a meeting tomorrow on updating our climate action strategy. And so this will take us a little while to do. But since most of our emissions are from transportation, there's probably going to be something there involving our transportation. But you know, I'll bring that back if we have any new and wild and you know, ideas that will involve changes in our transportation patterns, but you know, probably not. I don't think there's anything else that I can think of from a transportation perspective that's been coming up lately. So I think we can move on unless anyone has any questions.
Okay.
And then
Staff?
Patrick, I just put your staff near the closed in case you want to do an overview in open and then move to close.
Can't hear you.
You're muted, Patrick.
You're still muted.
There we go.
Because I keep clicking at the same time.
An overview of, what did you want an overview of?
There's a staff update is the item.
Okay.
So is there anything in open you want to update, or you want to move straight to closed?
No, it's really, mainly it's around the multi-use path, so
Okay.
not too much more to update on.
Okay, so Tyler, then
Tyler, you're muted now.
Muted.
move to closed, end the meeting. Yeah.
Oh, we have business arising from the minutes. We have Steph, have we already captured the to do for regarding the delegation and setting up a meeting?
That's an action at the top. Yeah.
Okay. Then
That's misnamed. That should be new business. Sorry.
Then move to close.
Do I need to second? Does somebody need to second that?
I think you need to read it.
Oh.
E3.
Oh,
need-
second page.
Oh,
Is that what you mean?
I can do it. That the committee move to a closed meeting pursuant to section 91E of the community charter. Meetings that may or must be closed to the public. A part of a committee meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered relates to the following: the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements. If the committee considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality. Mover,
I'll move.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks.